Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of College Sucks. I'm your host, Davia Samantha Davidson, a student affairs professional who has been in college most of my life. All right, this week I am going to be tackling something that bothers everyone. It is something that impacts your success level as a student, as an employee, as just an adult with tasks, with responsibilities. And I'm currently in recovery for this problem, meaning I'm actively dealing with it. It has plagued me most of my life, and I think that I have discovered the cure. What is it? It's procrastination. And this week, on this episode, I'll be providing you with the procrastination cure. College sucks. Stay tuned. So please note that procrastination is something that haunts every college student. Well, let me say 9.5 out of 10. You know it, you hate it, but you do it anyway. It's just something that comes naturally to us. And I think understanding why we procrastinate can really help us in fixing this issue, because it really does rob us of the opportunity to be our best selves. And that's what we're trying to pursue as a college student and in life in general. We want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. So let's get into it. Why are we procrastinating? Well, for me, the obvious answer is that you have something to do with that you find difficult, you find challenging, and it's not as fun as scrolling on TikTok, having a nap, talking to your friends, talking on phone, listening to music, or watching a movie. Like, the two things don't compare in the enjoyment level. There's one thing that is hard, that's going to require focus, attentiveness, for you to know the answer, for you to figure something out, for you to solve a problem. And then there's something else that doesn't require any of that. You just have to turn on, scroll, make a call, plug in your headphones. When it's a no-brainer with the two things. If you're asked, what would you rather do? Naturally, you would rather do the thing that is fun. So oftentimes it's that the task that we have is just, it appears too much. It's too much for us and we just can't be bothered with it. It's not about being lazy, to be honest. Sometimes it has to do with the discomfort you feel with the task that you have to do. So it's going to take up time. It's going to be hard. It's going to require that you interview somebody, read a boring old book, read 5 papers, and then you have to type your ideas, your thoughts, answer these questions over 10 or 15 pages, which is typically what a college paper is. And given that, like, you just don't want to do it. But here is the thing: you're in college, and unless you want to fail out, you have to do it. So that's the thing about procrastinating. You are basically putting the thing off for another time. And then what happens is that the time that you have to work with becomes less and less and less. And so what increases is your stress level, your discomfort increases, and then you're not able to put your best foot forward. Procrastination really robs you of being able to do what you need to do. So let's be real. Procrastination only feels good in the moment, but in the long term, the effects, they feel absolutely horrendous. They are horrible. Procrastination leads to higher stress levels because putting things off, you're constantly thinking, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. And then when you look, all of the laters meet up, they're in one place and they need to be attended to with immediate effect. So it robs you of putting out the quality work that you need to put out, because you have so many things due and they're all calling your name all at once. The next thing you know, you're up until 3 a.m. losing your mind because the paper is due and you have to find something. And this leads to things like plagiarizing, not reading over the paper, running to AI sources, and then you and everybody else have the same response. And it's just ridiculous. It does not work out when you would have had enough time to take your time, go through the question, probably get feedback if possible, read over, put in all your commas, your full stop, capitalize, spell words properly that need to be spelled properly. Like the stress level is just so much. You feel so overwhelmed. You are irritated. You want to cry. I mean, it's taken me back to my college days. It's so rough because you put everything off and now it is due and there's no extension. The next thing is the quality of work. There is no way the night before is going to give you excellent work. It's absolutely impossible because when you are writing your paper, you are writing it. And if you're reading it the same time you are writing it, you are viewing it from the eye of the writer. You are seeing it with your mind's eye, meaning you're seeing what you thought you wrote down. Now, when you write the paper and you put it down and you go back to it, that's when you're able to pick up on all those small errors because your mind has been removed from the writing process. You've had time to breathe and you're looking at it with fresh eyes. And that's when you're able to see your mistakes. But if you're doing it at 3 in the morning, needing to go to sleep because you have an exam and the paper due, two things, there is no way you're going to see other than what your mind's eye is telling you is there. And oftentimes it's an error. And let me tell you, marking is subjective. If you keep making small errors in spelling, in text and phrasing, if it in tense, if you're not citing properly, whoever is marking that, they are going to mark you down. There is no way you're going to get a top grade with a paper that's riddled with errors, right? It just can't work. So the night before produces lower quality work and lower quality grade. Christopher Parker says, procrastination is like a credit card. It's fun until you get the bill. And that's facts. It's all good and well until you see those exam results, until you don't have the grades to qualify for a scholarship money that you could have used. You haven't made it on the honor roll. Persons whose ability is equal to yours or even a little bit lower because they have better habits, they have done what they needed to do to get there. It's going to make you feel some type of way. I know that. I've spoken to students who know their ability, but they just can't seem to kick that procrastination habit and they can't find a cure for it. And I can say that I'm not telling you something that I didn't have to do. I'm not telling you something that I don't personally struggle with daily. I am a lover of putting off things. Seriously, even recording this podcast, I've had to say to my friend, I need to just set a time that is non-negotiable. I'm going to do it on Tuesdays, which gives me enough time to have you help me edit it and not be in a squeeze or a bind for when it needs to be uploaded. Like, they're just some things that you have to do. But I think the best story I have about procrastination personally is when I was pursuing my undergraduate degree. I was there gliding through like, oh, these B's are enough. I mean, I've passed. I did the paper the night before, and sometimes I would get an A, I must admit. But a lot of times it would be B's, B pluses, B minuses. And I wasn't even checking that persons who I was on par with academically, that they were just doing their papers a little bit earlier and they were getting A's. It wasn't until the end of second year that one of my lecturers said to me, if you continue on this path, you're going to end up with lower second class honors and you're going to have to do courses. If you want to pursue a master's program, you're going to have to do supplementary courses because you don't get a scholarship to go do your master's with lower second class. You don't just get into the program. So you need to get your grades up. And I was like, what? I thought these were good enough. And, in another episode, I'll talk about tracking your own progress because that was something I wasn't doing. I went to university at 17 years old. There was a lot of naivety there. And that's really why I'm doing this, to save people who didn't have somebody who went to university in their family and they don't have the guidance, or they're not going to their student services professional for advice. But anyway, back to my story, I digress. So my lecturer said, look, you're going to have to get mostly A's, if not all A's, to get your grades up. And it was a wake-up call for me. And so the strategies that I'm going to be telling you are strategies I employed. I didn't go look them up somewhere. These were things I had to do. I had to start my work early because when I was introspective, when I was honest with myself, I saw that a lot of times I was writing, when I would reread my essays, I'd be like, what? What did you write? This doesn't even make any sense. What is the sentence? Where did this come from? But because I was so tired, it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning and the paper was due at 8:30 and it had to be handed in at an office or at the lecturer's department. You couldn't be late or you were going to get a zero. It wasn't like you could find a lecturer and say, oh, please take the paper. You submit it at the dean's office. And that's that. It's a faceless submission. So it would be small mistakes. It would be not having enough sources. It would be not reading things over. And so I really would just miss the opportunity to put my best foot forward. And here it was, I was in an embarrassing position where when you speak to me when I'm answering questions in class, I sound like I have sense. But when you're reading my papers, it seems as if I'm illiterate. I cannot read or write because simple things, no punctuation, no capitalization, typographical errors, things I would have seen had I done the paper and at least had a day to look it over with fresh eyes. And so when I'm telling you this, I'm not telling you from the perspective of somebody who has graduated and is done with school and is now teaching and working in student services and I'm so far removed. I still have to fight procrastination daily because it is the easiest default habit. It's the easiest thing to do. Why work on something from a meeting when I can watch an episode of something on Netflix or I can scroll on my phone? Like the easier option, our brain is programmed always to choose what is easiest. But the people who are successful are not the people who are doing that. And you have more challenges now than I did in university. For me, it was just sleeping mostly and talking to my friends or, probably watching a movie or listening to music and just chilling, reading magazines. But no, you're in an environment where all of these platforms are programmed to take your time. They keep giving you things that you like. The algorithm is set for you. Can you imagine something that caters specifically to what you like in front of you on a device? Of course, it's going to be easier. But at the end of the day, your education is way too expensive to not earn the degree that you deserve. And that's why I'm literally pleading to you and preaching to you about trying to cure this problem so that you can live up to your fullest potential. So let's get into it. What were some of the tips I employed that I'll be sharing with you to cure this procrastination problem? All right, so let's quickly jump into the tips because I don't want this podcast to be another way in which you're procrastinating, although I am dropping gems over here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say to you is to break things down, okay? Big tasks feel overwhelming, so you need to break them into smaller, more manageable steps. Simple things. I'll always say to a student, once you get the essay, the first thing you need to do is to read it over. Sometimes you get several questions to choose from. You can look at which one appeals to you personally. If it's one question, you can break it down into parts. Like what is this question asking me? If it's even that, that's something that you can do. Even typing it into Google, like the terms, if you don't understand them, or the concepts, to just bring up something or show you articles that are related to it. The small, manageable steps that makes it easier for you. You can create an outline. You can start plotting out the essay. You can discuss it with your peers. You can discuss it with somebody who is mentoring you, who's in the year above you. You can go and use office hours and discuss it with the lecturer. You can say, this is what I understand. And am I on the right path? So these are things that you can do to just break it down. A 10-page paper should not be done in one sitting, to be honest, unless you've already created an outline and you have all your sources together. You really need to build up to it. So I would say break it down into smaller tasks to make it more manageable so it's not that overwhelming. The next thing that you want to try is the timer, the Pomodoro technique, which is where you do work for 25-minute blocks and then you take a 5-minute break. And for this, you have to be really disciplined. You have to set a timer. And I love using timers. I have a Google home. That's been a lifesaver for me, keeping me on task. Like I'll say alarm in 25 minutes, and I don't want that alarm to come and I'm not done. So it's something that you can use. You can set the timer on your phone and put your phone on do not disturb so that no calls come in and you turn off all your notifications. The Pomodoro effect has proven to be so useful, and I'm actually going to have a whole episode on that next week. So I hope that you are staying tuned and that you will check it out to go into detail as to how to use that technique to help you. The next thing is that you need to find your prime time. So for me, when I needed to catch up, when I needed to make sure that I was getting mostly A's in my final year, what I discovered was that my prime time at that time was when everybody else was gone. So I did a lot of work Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sunday evenings. So the campus would be relatively quiet. People would be gone to parties. And I'll tell you something funny. Something that I did to make sure that I could not be peer pressured or tempted into going to these parties was I would wash my hair. As simple as that sound, washing my hair on a Friday night would mean I would not be going out, because back then I had really long, really thick hair, and I would wash it and air dry it. There was no way I could be going to a party. My hair would be wet. And so it was a preventative measure I employed because I knew I would be tempted. I mean, these were free parties at the university with tons of drinks and everybody was going. But if I had my hair in rollers or it was wet, I could not be going outside. It wasn't going to work. So that was a way that I kept myself inside on a Friday night when everybody else was gone. And I was able to have the place completely quiet, away from distractions. Nobody would be coming to my room to have a conversation or anything, and I would use it to outline my essays and to write them, and that was something that I did. So for me, that was my prime time. Some people find that they have to sleep and wake up. I used to try that as well. And now, later on in life, for me, my prime time is actually early in the morning. So I tend to go to bed early and then wake up. You have to know what time works for you. That's one of the things you need to discover. When is your energy the highest? Some people are night owls, some people are early morning birds. Some people are during the day. They can find pockets when they don't have a class to really sit down in the library and do their work. You are the only person who can tell what is your prime time. So you need to find it and you need to use that time to do your work. The next thing is you're going to need an accountability partner. All right. So you have to tell a friend that I have this paper due. So if you see me idling around the place, you see me laughing, please just remind me. One of the things that you can do if you're not the friendliest person is you can actually set up little alarms and notifications that pop up on your phone with funny messages like, you're laughing, your homework done yet? Or remember that coursework is due. You can set up timers that pop up on your phone to kind of remind you that you need to be doing your work. But having an accountability partner, somebody, they don't even have to be attending here. It could be attending your college. It could be someone who is at college away. It could be someone who is in your family. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your boo. Just somebody to say, oh, remember you have this paper due, like how far are you reaching it? You would be surprised how much just having someone remind you that you have this to do can make a world of a difference in terms of being accountable and staying on track. The next thing is to reward yourself. So to say, I can watch a Netflix episode. I can't get my words out. I'm so sorry. A Netflix episode if I finish up to 4 pages. If I've answered at least one question from my course assignment. If I have studied at least 2 units in preparation for the exam. So you can set these tasks and decide how you're going to treat yourself, like what you've earned, because motivation is not enough. Sometimes we need real incentives, and you can set up incentives for yourself. You get to decide what you will treat yourself to having accomplished a particular task. So just set up the parameters and say, this is what I'll give myself if I've completed what needs to be done. The next thing is you need to use the 2-minute rule. So if tasks take less than 2 minutes, just do those right away. And it can be simple things like responding to group work messages. Sometimes you don't answer, which just starts the whole bad vibes. Responding to an email, answering one question, reading one page, reading an article, typing up a citation, simple things that will take 2 minutes or less. Just life admin as well. So if there's something you need to do at the office, instead of taking time from your prime time to go do that, if you're in the vicinity and it's just going to take you 2 minutes, just get those tasks out of the way. The next thing I would say to you is to be honest with yourself. So if you are procrastinating because it feels overwhelming, it's important that you acknowledge that, right? Sometimes I have to literally sit students down and be like, why are you not doing what you know that you need to be doing? And I mean, you know the answer. You're afraid of it. And guess what? It's fine, because the fear that you have of it means that there is something to be gained from it. That means you have something to lose. So the same kind of energy that you're going to use at 4 in the morning, you just need to push yourself to use it a little bit earlier. I know it is easier said than done, but definitely, I feel like if you can just get it out of the way, be honest with yourself and say, look, I've been doing these papers last minute. Yes, I'm passing, but I'm really not earning the grade I should be earning. And the next thing is that procrastination really is a habit. So yes, you might be cruising through those first year courses, or in first year it worked, and the beginning of second year's first semester it worked. But as you progress in your program, things are going to get harder, and it is expected that you rise to the occasion. So you have to think, what if I did it earlier? If even to challenge yourself, to test yourself. If I got a decent grade doing it the night before, what could I get if I did it earlier? But the thing is, we tell ourselves stories, right? We create these myths, things that are not true, that we rely on so that we make it okay for us to procrastinate. We say we work better under pressure, but you know that you don't. Nobody does. What are you doing rushing and sacrificing quality just to delay things that you have to do anyway? So sure, you might finish the project, but like I said, imagine how much better it would have been if you had just done it with enough time, reasonable time, to be able to go over it and to fix things and to adjust it and just really put out the work that matches you. You know what I mean? So it's not true that you work well under pressure. It may be that you are just so used to being under pressure. It's the only thing that you have really given yourself an opportunity to know, and you need to do away with that. The next thing that I find that we say to ourselves is that I just don't have enough time. We all get the same 24 hours. It's just what you do with it. And there's this thing in your phone called screen time that you, if you're being honest with yourself, if you review it and you see how many hours you spend on that phone, and sure, some of it would have been doing research, but it shows you down to the app how long you spent on the phone. Now you go back and you tell me in a given day how many hours you have lost. I mean, if we're going to fix this, we're going to have to be honest. We're going to have a come to Jesus moment where we just, testify like, hello, look in your phone. How much time are you spending on it? Is it really true that you don't have enough time? What it really is a matter of prioritization. Okay? You're not making the things that need to be a priority. And that's just the truth, I have to tell you. The next thing is that you'll start tomorrow. The interesting thing about tomorrow is that it never comes. It really is a space holder for us. Tomorrow is a lie. Start today, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Progress is progress, and all you need to be doing is progressing. All right. So it's very important that you stop making excuses and just get into what needs to be done, because it's still going to need to be done. So why not give it your best effort? All right. So I hope that you have learned something. I really want to say to you that, look, procrastination and procrastinating doesn't mean that you're an awful person, doesn't mean that you are lazy, doesn't mean that you're not responsible. It's just a habit, a very human one. Like I said, it affects probably 9.5 0.5 out of 10 students. It's very rare that you find a student that is overly organized, right? It is the norm for students to put things off. And I myself am still recovering from procrastination. It's something that I have to fight every day. Like I have to say to myself, okay, you have to do it today. Do it now. Let's just do it now. Like, why not? So it can be changed with time, effort, and a little self compassion. So if you've been putting something off, start small. Open the document, write one sentence, do one thing. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. And please remember that you're not in this alone. We are all still figuring it out, even when we've left college. If you can conquer this when you are in college, imagine what will happen when you start your career, when you start your business, when you're running your family. Like, you would have really gained an important life skill. So, don't be too hard on yourself, but here is the training ground to fix and develop those really good habits that can make you successful in life. All right. So that's it for today's episode of College Sucks. So please go tackle that task that you've been avoiding. And when you do, please let me know how it went. Please give me some feedback. You can follow me on TikTok, on Instagram at collegesucksja. You can use the hashtag procrastination cure or curing procrastination. I would love to know if you've employed any of these strategies and how it's worked out for you. And as always, you can also give me some feedback on the episode. Please share with your friends, like and subscribe. I really want to reach more students, and I do the more that you share it and the more that you give me feedback and engage with me. All right. So thank you so much for listening. Go and do that assignment and get the grades that you deserve this year. Bye.